All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American VINDICTA Show. I want to say thank you to everybody who is following the show, who is helping to support us, to keep us funded with your precious donations. I am very honored and grateful by everyone who donates to this show. It's quite a tumultuous time that we live in, where we hear every day some new financial expert says that the banking is going to collapse. And so with that type of knowledge and to still receive a few donations here and there, I'm extraordinarily grateful, and praise be to God that the church will support its people. Please make sure that you're donating to righteous people. And if you feel led by the Lord to donate to me, praise God. But make sure that you're tithing. Don't forget to tithe your 10%. Don't forget to help out those who need your help locally around you. You never know. You may just lift someone's day, pull them way out of a dark place by just giving them a little bit extra of a tip here and there. So make sure, if you're blessed, to bless others. We have a few things I want to go over today. We're going to have Bob Griswold scheduled for today, but we'll have to go for Monday with Bob. So for right now, I want to talk about the mass shooting stuff that's going on real quick. And for those of you who are listening to this on a audio file, make sure you go over to either the Rumble channel or over to the YouTube channel so you can see a demonstration that I'm about to do. And in regards to that, for the Rumble channel, if you're not subscribed to the Rumble channel, if you could, please, it would help me out greatly. Go over to the Rumble channel and just subscribe to the American VINDICTA Show over there. And also the Doug and Dave Intel Report. I don't think very many people know that we're actually on Rumble. A lot of the stuff that is behind paywall with the Common Sense Show, me and Dave agreed to actually put that out publicly. So the Doug and Dave Intel Report is being put out. It's on Rumble. All the other stuff that's on the Common Sense Show, all the other really good interviews that Dave does, that's still behind the paid firewall, so nobody can ever mess with Dave or cancel him. But for people who do ask the question, the reason why it's not on YouTube is because YouTube will give us a strike immediately now. If you talk about politics in the wrong way, you talk about medical stuff the wrong way, apparently now I have to change wording because you can't say this is so stupid. I got to make up words to describe people who decide to dress a way that shouldn't go with their gender. So those people, the trans people, I'm just going to call them amphibians for now on, because they don't know what they are, or they think they can be the same thing. So that hopefully will skirt us around the AI fact checkers, whatever the hell it is that YouTube uses. They're so sensitive on YouTube. You can let all this debauchery and really gross, negligent stuff, like pretty close to child pornography, has been found on YouTube. Naked yoga is on YouTube. I don't know if it still is. I know it was at one point. It's more or less pornography. Some really heinous stuff and some outright blatant racist stuff on YouTube. But me as a Christian, you don't like that. You don't like the fact that I talk about the Word of God, that I call out sin, and that I rebuke people publicly. Well, that's fine, because I do it. Pastor David Langford does it. A bunch of other Christians out there do it. And as long as we're all out there doing it, and YouTube can kiss our behinds and throw us off if you want, we'll go to Rumble. We'll go wherever God's word will lead us. And if God is with us, who can stand against us? You can't, YouTube. You'll never be able to stand against the word of God. And eventually you too will have to bow. Oh, the things I want to say. Things I want to say for all you people out there who like to circumvent the word of God. All you people, you scoffer. You people who you like to target Christians. You like to target children and the innocents. One of these days, You will be the target. And he who is coming will not be as kind and as gentle as those of us who are here now. Get right with God. All right. So let's talk about mass shootings. So far, just within the year of 2023, we have had quite a bit mass shootings. You may not know of all of them, but we've had quite a bit here. Let's see. If you go to, and I want to give you a website for you to check out, and make sure that you're staying up to date with this, gunviolencearchive.org. That's probably that's what I used for many, many years when I was teaching active shooter classes to civilians, or whenever I was trying to get stats. This was one of the main places. There's also another thing that you can do. If you live, well, it doesn't matter really where you live as long as your state participates in the program. But you actually, as civilians, can log on to something called LexisNexis. I'll make sure I leave a link. You can log on to LexisNexis, and the community crime mapping, I believe is what it's called. That's what we used to use when we were doing threat assessment reports. When we would do, obviously a threat assessment for an area, for a federal building, for a federal agency, and you can actually tie into the local crime stats without having to go to the police department, because the police departments, if they are on this program, not every state agrees to be on the program, but you can actually go and see, locally within your area, what's going on, all the way from, the most simplest crime to murder. And it'll show you prostitution, gang violence, drugs, robbery, arsonery. It'll show you all kinds of stuff. So, within your area, that's a good thing to try and look up and to be familiar with. And if you've never thought about this, wherever it is that you're bugging out to, try and look up the crime stats for your area. If, let's say, I live in the western side of Fort Worth. I'm not in Fort Worth, but I'm like 50 miles away. So if my bug out location was on the other side of Dallas, then I know that if I have to bug out from my location to the other side of Dallas, so if I have to go from west to east, I'm going to have to go through Fort Worth, cities in between, Irving, Arlington, all that, and then Dallas, and then reach my final destination, my bug out zone. Well, if I really wanted to know just how dicey it would be, I would go and look up the crime stats. And if you're having to move through large cities, you need to make sure that you have maps of areas, right? Maps of areas so that you can know detour routes, because you don't want to go through these big cities. And I'm telling you right now, we're quickly coming on to a time when shit's fixing to hit the fan. So if you do have to bug out and you do have to drive through a big city, you may not get out of it. You may not get out of it because of multiple reasons. One, violence. The violence could be through the roof. Cars could be stopped on the side of the road, people out protesting, rioting, looting. Okay. And in between all of that, you're going to have the ability for people to take advantage of a situation, and they will find you, most likely. People will pick on them. Do you understand what I mean? People will find someone that they say, I can take that person. I can assault that person, rob that person, rape that person, kidnap them, kill them, whatever. Because people are no better than animals when danger starts, and they will take advantage of chaos. So I say, if you can afford to, go around the big cities, because you already know that almost every big city is going to be Democratic. And because of that, we know facts that crime is through the roof in pretty much every city across America. You're going to deal with homeless people. You're going to have to deal with just the random people who are out mealing about, taking advantage of the time, or, innocent people who are scared to death. It's so chaotic, and I don't think anyone has a good solid answer for when this time occurs that we're talking about. But I can tell you this much: if you can avoid main areas where people are, because where people are, problems are, go around it. And weeks ago, I had a person leave a comment saying, "Doug, what can you break down what your thoughts are on a means of travel between walking, riding a bicycle, taking a ATV, a horse, or a vehicle, and how these things all compare?" So obviously, walking, you're going to be at the behest of your health. How healthy are you? And not only that, think of this. If you're just driving along and the EMP that we always warn about finally hits, and let's say I'm going to pick on you ladies for a second, you're coming back from Sunday brunch and all you got on is what you wore and heels, and you got to walk, even 10 miles back home, you're quickly not going to be in heels and you're going to be barefoot. And depending on your terrain, that can suck immensely. Okay. Broken glass, splintered wood, it's the little things you don't think of that while you're walking and you have the presence of mind, you see the glass, you veer around it, you see, the pallet of wood that's exploded on the side of the ground, you veer around it. But the moment someone chases you, you're not looking at your feet. You're just going to be running. So it's one of the things I always say, just have an old pair of sneakers stuck somewhere in your vehicle and just take some socks and shove it into your sneakers and just leave it there. I mean, honestly, it's a very easy thing to do because shoes, you can have quite the little compartment in them. Little dry bags that you can get from the store, stuff that you can put there's a few items into, or even like a laundry bag. Take your shoes, put them in there, put socks in there, okay? Put a spare thing of underwear in there, put some shorts or extra pants in there, and an extra shirt, a light jacket, and just zip it all up. And it'd be something about this big, and put it in the trunk or somewhere in your vehicle. And if need be, you have a spare change of clothes. Because the worst thing that could happen to me is if I'm just wearing my flip flops that day and I'm going to the feed store and something bad happens and now I have to walk. Well, it's between me and whatever, $15-20 worth of flip flops or sandals that I have on, and running potentially for my life. And considering the fact that I'm 300 pounds, running for my life is not going to be very fun. I'm still in pretty good shape, but I'm not going to run as far as I used to. And for many of you out there, you're not going to run as far as you used to. So stop kidding yourself. And once again, be in good shape, right? Be in good shape now so that the day that happens, you don't have to rely upon all these other different devices. The greatest thing that God gave us is a physically strong body. And the thing that we did the worst to it was feed it McDonald's and Dairy Queen. So, obviously cardio, eat right, drink plenty of water. You can never drink enough water. Take the vitamins that you're supposed to. and just stay in good shape. So that's walking. Oh, by the way, if we're talking about bugging out, if you're walking to your bug out location, how far is that? How quickly can you get there? Have you walked it before? Have you made multiple different routes to go around different areas, get to your bug out location? And if need be, can you run there? Can you run there with everything that you needed to carry? With all this stuff that so many people sell, can you carry it at all? You know, are you hydrated that day? Are you one of these guys or gals who booze all the time, so you're always dehydrated, and the day shit hits the fan? I'm dehydrated and I'm out of breath because I'm a smoker as well. Oh, let me throw this 100-pound pack on filled with all this crap that I bought, and I'm just gonna walk. I'm just gonna get out my door while chaos is filling the sky and doomsday is happening and people are losing their minds. I'm gonna put on my pack and I'm just gonna walk to my bug out location, and everything will be fine. Okay. You're going to be in a world of hurt. Because let me ask you this question for those of you who think you're just going to walk to your bug out location. What happens when you get there and it's not available anymore? It's not available because it could be on fire, right? Could be underwater, floods, wildfires. Could be a group of people already there, already tore into your place, took all the stuff that you've been stashing there. And now what do you do? Where do you go next? Do you have a secondary location, a tertiary location to go to? Backups for backups. I was just talking to a gentleman this morning, and we were talking about prepping. And in regards to prepping, how to prep as a community. And it's kind of one of the things that I would say I'm uniquely specialized in. But when you prepare as a community, think about this. Just consider your home as your community, okay? And then consider everything that's ever been bad in your life happening all at once. Oh, by the way, you got a family you have to feed. So, for you men out there, if the power's out, well, what are you doing about that? Do you got a generator running? If you do have a generator running, that's going to be quite loud day and night. What times are you going to run it? How much gas do you have? Do you only run it for a little bit, or do you run it all the way until you got no more gas because you didn't plan for it? How are you going to defend your home if you're one man? One man with his family defending his home. You got to sleep sometime. Worst case scenario is you go a day or two without sleep, and then you'll hit the wall. And I've been there before. I've been there before many, many times when you've been up 18, 20 hours time and time again, and you just randomly fall asleep. Your brain just starts to shut off. You hallucinate it by the third day. And I've been there. And anyone who has been in the military, at least in the infantry, and you've been standing post, it's one of the reasons why us NCOs would come around and harass you a little bit to keep you awake. Because if you fall asleep, anything can happen. Anybody can walk right by you. Anybody can take advantage of you. Same thing with security guards. And there are quite a few security guards who listen to me. Same thing for cops. God forbid you didn't want to be caught falling asleep in your car on duty, though many do. Many of us find places to hide because you've had a hard day, hard week, well, hard night, and you try and find 30 minutes to an hour shut eye here and there, and you go and you hide. But when you have to bug in and you can't hide anymore, it's up to you now to stand guard. And most likely, man, the chopping the wood, the gathering the wood, all the hard, laborious stuff, guess who's probably going to be doing that? It's probably you. Guess who's going to probably have to handle anybody who comes on your property? It's probably you. Guess who should be staying up at night, keeping an eye on the place? Because most crimes of opportunity happen at night. Well, it's probably you. Are you ready for that? Nobody is. No one single man can be ready for day and night operations 24/7. What happens if you get sick, you sprain your ankle, you got the stomach flu, right? What happens when you're severely dehydrated? You throw in all the wild things that can happen. That's fun and that's good and all. But just the daily things. I mean, you don't think about it, but when shit hits the fan and you have to hunker down in your now castle and you happen to have a severely sprained ankle, how are you going to hop around on that thing and take care of stuff for a couple weeks? That's going to be painful. I mean, you need to make sure, for one thing, that you're mentally ready. If you're not mentally ready, you will not be ready when it actually happens. Two is to be physically tough. There are so many men and women in this country right now that have turned into a bunch of latte sipping Karens. And you are not mentally tough. You're not physically tough. You're emotionally tough, right? You love to run your mouth. You love to look big and bad in the comment section. You'll look really awesome on Twitter with all your funny memes. But the first time someone walks right up to you and hits you right in the face, what are you going to do about it? Fall down and cry? Because that is what life does. The moment we think we have everything, okay? And like I said, I've worked with a couple groups on getting their communities ready. It's one of my passions. I love quizzing people about how ready they think they are, because honestly, my job is just to poke holes in your theory. Because eventually you will have multiple people poking holes into your defense, and you need to have that experience of, what do I do when my primary source of protection fails? Do I have a secondary? Do I have a tertiary? Do I have backups for my backups? If my solar panels get screwed up because hail damage, a limb falls on it, a wild animal stampedes across it, do you have multiples? Do you have spares? These things we don't think of, but we all want to get into the epic firefight and live in doomsday land, like if the Walking Dead's actually going to happen. But most of you aren't ready for what happens whenever the batteries on your DeWalt drill run out. So, be thinking all the time. That's why I always say, have books on hand, because they are handy. Because when you don't have a plan, you can at least go, okay, I need water, food, shelter, fire, protection. And I need to learn how to do all this shit. All of a sudden now, what do I do? You better hang on. Better get to reading now. Like I said, a lot of you men out there, you've become a bunch of Karens, sipping your lattes and wearing your skinny jeans. You ain't ready for the hard work yet. So you better get ready for it now, because it's your life and potentially your family's life. That's what is relied upon you, men. That's why I call this great calling for the warrior priest of the family to rise back up. So very, very few hear that call. The righteous will be the ones who will be victed. It it won't be the billionaires. It won't be the millionaires. It won't be these people who always think that they got the plan. They got an answer for everything. If it doesn't matter, if you're not righteous by the blood, if you're not bought and born again, you ain't living a godly life. You're not going to be ready for what's going to happen. Men's hearts will fail in fear for what happens. You want to talk about men's hearts failing in fear? Do some research on Africa and what they do to each other over there. What they do, you know, tribe to tribe, clan to clan, these town fights, running into one town running into another, and it's just a machete melee war. And they kill everybody by hacking them to death. And then they take children. And if the children survive, if they don't kill them, they take the children, especially the men, the boys, and they turn them into the next guerrilla fighter soldiers. That's a real way of life in parts of Africa. Look at Mexico. You think you got everything handy. You think you got a plan. And then the cartel rolls in. Buddy, we're not talking about guys who are, here to sell some dope. We're talking about guys who have military training, military equipment, radio communication that is just as well logistically planned as your local police or better. They have intelligence gatherers. They, I would say, are aspiring terrorists, but they excel at torture. And in those towns that are afflicted by these cartel, it's a keep your head down and don't say anything for the rest of your life or join the cartel. And it's not in people's mindset here in America, because you can always just go right down the street and go to Starbucks. You don't live in real world danger in America. Maybe in a few towns here and there you do. Maybe for you who live in the outskirts out in the wilderness, yeah, sure, you might. But other countries around the world, you don't understand when I say hyper violence. Violence is a way of life. Violence is an answer to an argument in almost every country around the world, except for Western countries. Now you're starting to see it in many cities here in America. You're seeing many gangs who willfully will go and target people of other races, people who are elderly. We just call soft targets, just because they can, just because the opportunity was there. That times who knows what number is what to expect when everything breaks down, prophecy hits the fan. So we were talking about you being on foot. Let's talk about you on a bicycle. Now, and once again, this is all relative to your bug out, okay? And I really don't like talking about the whole bug out thing, because the entire idea is flawed. From the beginning to the end, the entire idea is flawed. There is no safe place. People eventually find people. Unless you go out into the Yukon, right? Unless you go out way into the wilderness, like in the Northwest, and then you're having to contend with the animals. You're no longer the top of the food chain, Jack. So, even on a bicycle, if you're going to have, if you're a single person and part of your bug out, part of your bug out logistics is a bicycle, how much do you actually ride your bicycle? How much do you actually do cardio? I have a bicycle recently purchased. Let me tell you, as a guy who can still squat in the 600s right now, I pedaled my bicycle. Of course, I look like a great big gorilla on it. I pedaled my bicycle up the hill and down the hill to the church, about a quarter mile away. And what I forgot is the entire way back home is uphill. Okay. I still do cardio, and I'll admit, nowhere near where I should be. And I still work out quite a bit. I'm in fairly good health. I don't smoke. But even then, you talk about taxing. And I felt it the next day as well. Eventually the hill got so steep, I just had to get off the damn bike and just walk. And at that point in time, what was the bicycle really worth? Because I probably could have just jogged the entire way there and the entire way back and made it home with maybe a minute or two to spare. compared to what I did with a bicycle. Unless you live on absolutely flat ground, consider hills. You better start riding that bicycle up and down them. Oh, and I know this may sound silly, but wear a helmet. You don't have to look like an idiot. But wear something to protect your skull. I had a friend of mine. He got a mountain bike. He got talked into it. He lives up in the Northwest. So here he is, his 6'5" frame. He's riding his little bicycle. And it doesn't matter, how big the bicycle is. When you're 6'5", everything looks small on you. So here he is riding his bicycle, and he's doing a mountain trail. And I don't know what exactly occurred with the bike, but the wheels just kind of slid out from underneath him. Well, when he fell, he hit his head. And because it's the Northwest and people up there apparently have completely trashed everything, he landed right next to a damn beer bottle, smashed the beer bottle, hit it. You know how hard you got to hit to smash a beer bottle? Well, cut up the side of his head. You may not think about it, but if you had to jump on your bicycle and pedal really fast to save your life, and then you crash, well, what happens now? If I don't have something to protect my head and I knock myself unconscious, well, that can be really bad for many obvious reasons. If I knock myself unconscious and no one finds me, oh, and I'm bleeding out because my head is cut wide open, well, that's not good either. But to make it just one step worse, get an infection right up here in your head because you didn't have the proper medical equipment with you. It's like I said, guys, you can buy the most badass guns and gear and trucks and bury Connex boxes in the ground, which really aren't that great of an idea. That's good and great and all, but are you ready for the little accidents that will most likely kill you before anything else? Before the Russians get here, before Abaddon is crawling out of the hole, and the locusts are terrorizing the world, most likely many people will die because of stupid mistakes. Because that's how real life works. So get out of the fantasy that all the movies put you into and understand that most people are not experienced enough to even go on a simple hike and come right back out of the forest in one shape, in good shape. Most people really aren't, because you haven't had to have to do it. So that's why I'm telling you, go out and do these things now. All right. I'm not saying go out and pedal your bicycle down a mountain pass and then crash onto like a hobo's camp, but it may happen, right? So be prepared. Here's the other thing. So let's move on from bicycle. God, I really thought having a bicycle was a good idea until I bought one. I realized it was all nothing but work. So dirt bikes, motorcycles, that's a force multiplier. Dirt bike is going to go way further than a motorcycle can. It's more maneuverable. It's lighter. You can only carry so much on a bike. You can put the saddles on there and stuff. I don't personally ride dirt bikes, but I can definitely tell you that what I am eventually investing into is a Rokon motorcycle. It's actually, they call it a tractor. And if you've never looked up a Rokon, I'll make sure that I insert some videos into it. Those little bikes can go almost anywhere. It's like a little mountain goat. But once again, I have experience with riding motorcycle. If you don't, that could be a really bad day should you just decide to buy one and never ride it. So, it's just like having any good rifle or pistol or plate carrier. If you never participate in the reason why you bought the damn thing, you're really kind of wasting your money. So use your gear. But yeah, here's the other problem though. Can they go very far? Sure. Gas tanks are small. Just remember that gas tanks on motorcycles and on dirt bikes are small, but you can go pretty far with them. They're loud. They're very, very loud. You probably cannot muffle them enough to get away with, being quiet through the woods. But is that really the point? Are you meaning to be quiet or are you meaning to get the hell out of Dodge, right? And understand another thing. Everything that we're talking about right now, we're just talking about for one person. We're not talking about for two people, and we're not talking about for a family. It gets extraordinarily difficult when we start talking about adding children. Okay. Um, but yeah, I do like the two-wheel concept. I think motorcycles, dirt bikes, Rokons, those are great ideas. The e-bikes, the electric bikes, I think that's actually a good force multiplier. However, do you have the ability to recharge the bike? And a lot of the bikes now, the battery comes off of these electric bikes. And I think you can get like 30 to 40 miles on a bike. Hey, I mean, that's pretty good. I think you can go about probably 30 to 40 miles per hour on them. That's pretty good. That's better than what you're going to get with your bicycle. And, the average that I've seen is anywhere between $700 and like $5,000. I think if you're going to spend that much money, get a dirt bike, right? But for that $2,000 and under mark, save up your money and get like a decent e-bike. Those things can actually be fairly useful. But once again, for one person, carrying not very much of weight capacity. Okay, so you are limited in capability. What's next? Four-wheelers, side-by-sides, the ATVs, the all-terrain vehicles. What capabilities are there? Honestly, and depending on the area that you're in, I really like the idea of having four-wheelers. I like the idea of having a side-by-side. Of course, I was raised on four-wheelers. Um, I love the fact that my side by side will sit everybody in my family, and I can carry about 500 to 600 pounds in the back in the bed, and I can tow 2,000 pounds. I know that my gas tank is 10 gallons, and that 10 gallons will get me, I don't know, depending on how I'm riding it, I should at least get 50 miles, 60 miles depending before I need to start worrying about refilling it. And by refilling it, I mean like by the time it gets to half a tank, I want to refill it. Don't wait until something's down to like a quarter of a tank or almost empty and then refill it. You're setting yourself up for failure. Just keep refilling at half a tank. But yeah, I can carry quite a bit. But depending on where I'm at, does a side by side and does a side by side, does a four wheeler help? Well, rurally, sure. Out where I'm at, sure it does. Um, Inner city, probably not. Suburbs, probably not. So what's the next option then? The next option would be a horse, and then it was a vehicle. So here's my breakdown on horses. Horses are good force multipliers. Horses can feed themselves, water themselves. So there's your gas and there's your oil maintenance for a horse, right? The problem with a horse is horses, and I know this because I used to own them and my wife used to own them, is horses spook very easily. Horses run off uh, during the most inconvenient times. And a horse can definitely kill you if you don't know what you're doing on it, or even if you do know what you're doing on it. I know of experienced cowboys who have paralyzed themselves because of a freak thing that a horse did. I have seen horses with people on them rear up and that person not even be able to dally off in time, and that horse just collapse right down on top of them. I mean, and if we're talking about shit has hit the fan, that is a potential broken leg, broken hip, broken back, broken arm. I mean, that is severe trauma that I do not want inflicted to myself when literally I can't go to a hospital anymore. I may not even have pain meds at this point, right? Especially if I'm alone. How the hell do I recover myself? Now, there are plenty of people who that has happened and they've gotten back up on their horse and rode right back in town. But, there's also been plenty of people who have not. And there have been plenty of people who have bled out internally, bled out on the way back to safety. So, a horse is good, but a horse is bad. It depends on the rider, it depends on the horse, and it depends on the situation. If you're just mealing about, and let's say you and your entire suburb, you made a fort more or less, and you use the horse to get back and forth from here and there. Okay, that works fine. Can a horse run away from people? Absolutely. Can a horse be used to run over people? Absolutely. We do it in law enforcement all the time. Horses are great at getting through people. The only problem is that with a horse is you leave yourself widely exposed for many different things. But the same thing for walking, bicycle, four-wheeler and ATV and all this stuff. You're greatly exposed, and your ability to flip the vehicles over and harm yourself is just as great from bicycle to horse. It really depends on the situation and the person riding or driving, right? Situation dictates. I'm going to say that many, many times. The situation will dictate what you do. But with horses, you got to stable them, you got to feed them, you got to hay them, you got to water them. The good thing about livestock is, depending on how you're set up, livestock can produce more livestock. So you could potentially have an endless amount of means and motive for travels, right? Once again, people got to know what they're doing. You got to know how to actually ferry these horses. You got to know how to take care of their hooves. So if you're gonna use horses as a means for getting around when prophecy has hit the fan, know what to do with the horse, know how to fix the horse if need be, because horses have all different types of health problems that they deal with too. So, just like anything else, know how to do maintenance on a horse, just like you do maintenance on a vehicle. Okay, so finally, before we move off to something else, vehicles. Honestly, man, end of the day, have a 4x4. That's like the best advice I can give to you. Have a 4x4. I have a giant, stupidly jacked up Excursion with like 40-inch tires. Um, and that will get me far, but I'll tell you that realistically, you actually want something low profile because, worst case scenario, I'm going to run over your Prius with my Excursion. But after that, you know, it's a big, loud diesel. Everybody knows it, everybody sees it, and I can only get so far. Something quick, maneuverable, and the ability to go off road. When I say off road, I don't mean go into a bog and go mudding. I mean being able to get off of a freeway, highway, interstate, go through a median, through a ditch, and get onto that farm to market road. And if possible, make it through a dirt road after it's rained really bad. Okay. Everything else, you're taking great risk to go, you know, deep into the woods with a vehicle. You're taking great, great risk. That's where the dirt bike, the horse, the 4x4, the side by side, the e-bike, even a bicycle, or just on foot is the better option. The further you get into the wilderness, the less you want in that vehicle because it's not meant to travel there, right? There's a lot of, I could think of a lot of good vehicles that are out there, but honestly, I've seen cars get through places where I wouldn't think they would get to. Um, Big, giant, jacked up vehicles. Sorry, guys. That's not really what we want. It looks cool. I get it. I get it. I do it. It looks cool. But in reality, look at the way our military vehicles are created. And the only reason why they're so overly built is because it's the only thing we have when everything else is broken down as our vehicles. And it has to carry quite a bit because it has to carry armor. But other than that, I mean, honestly, I would say that your best bet for a vehicle, let me break this down, Barney style, something that will carry you and your family and your bug out needs, right? Potentially you may need to carry a trailer behind it. So you want a tow package. Okay. Um, two-wheel drive front wheel cars will do better than rear wheel cars. Um, all-wheel drive cars will do better than the two-wheel drive. And obviously 4x4 ends up being king. But, you know, is it the F-350 that you want, or is it the Colorado, what is that, the Colorado Canyon, the little 4x4 diesel trucks? Those are pretty cool, you know, little Toyota. Those are probably the better choice. The Toyotas are just notorious for just, you know, life and just keeping on going and going and going. I had a Tundra for the longest time. If I could, I would go back to that 2019, 2020 Tundra. These new Tundras now, man, I don't trust them at all. I don't like them. They're too brittle. But I want something that can have power to move through a blockade, if as in push a car, a disabled car out of the way. I want something that can carry me and my family. I want something that can get through a little bit of a tough situation. So there's your 4x4, which means don't have slick tires, put all-terrain tires on it. And if you don't want that, take your all-terrain tires and block them for a while. And when shit hits the fan, take your regular tires off, put on your all-terrain or your mud tires, and you know, now you got brand new treads. Um, with that vehicle though, like if you really wanted to set this up correctly, like a rally car, you know, the guys who do cross country and, you know, overlanding. That's kind of what my excursion is getting built out for. I think people who, and if you don't know what overlanding is, just do your Googling and your YouTubing and just look up overlanding. That is the way most of us should honestly be practicing your camping, your bugging out, your survival skills is with your vehicle. Your vehicle is nothing more than just a huge backpack that can get you places. Okay. It can also be a instrument that you can live in, work in, you know, and move in at the same time. So the vans are actually a really good concept on that too. Um, I think it's funny when I see people, and I know some of these people, they rah-rah all day about prepping, 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 and then they drive like a little BMW car or like a Mercedes. Like, you don't practice what you preach, you know, because worst case scenario, that 1954 Ford Workmaster tractor of mine, I will go as far as I can in that damn thing because I know that tractor can get places most other things can't. It's once again, it's a mindset, right? If you talk all the time about needing to prep and prepare, and you're heavily overweight and you smoke and you drink, come on, man, you're just trying to make money. You know, stop lying to us. Um, but yeah, that's my breakdown. You know, of means of travel. I've been meaning to go over this for quite some time, but I've had a few other things hit the flywheel. So, all right, let's move on to something else real quick. Let's talk about active shooters. And the one thing that I would like for all of you to carry and purchase, I don't sell these. As you know, I don't sell anything. I just sell you the idea to live. This is called a tourniquet. Okay, I've gone over it a couple times. Cat tourniquet. This was issued to me a long time ago. It's very old. But you need to know how to put this on.
Our message is to those people that work in industrial settings where they would be at risk of their limb being entrapped, farmers in an agricultural setting, and dialysis patients should all consider having ready access to a tourniquet. The first person we teach to put a tourniquet on is the individual putting it on themselves. And if you do not have that tourniquet on your person, then you may not be able to get to it. Certainly, this is a big push in law enforcement. All of the law enforcement officers should be being trained, should be personally wearing, is what I call it, wearing a tourniquet, much the same as you would wear a belt. What you have to have is a wound that would be amenable to the placement of a tourniquet. If the wound is too high up on the body, then there's no way to get the tourniquet between where the wound is and the heart. Okay? So if the wound is here in the forearm, you can put a tourniquet on above that level or even higher up if you want to. And these tourniquets are manufactured specifically for hemorrhage control purposes, have been tested, and they are endorsed by the Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care. There are a lot of counterfeit tourniquets out there that don't really work very well at all, and we don't want to use those kinds of tourniquets in this situation. So what we'll do is we'll place this tourniquet around the limb, loosen up this Velcro strap here, tighten this down as best we can above the level of the wound, okay? Then we're going to secure this Velcro on here like so. And then, just like the old Boy Scout windlass and cravat, we're going to turn this windlass until the bleeding stops and we feel that there's no pulse distal to that tourniquet. And then we'll secure this in place, and then we'll monitor this wound to make sure that as the patient improves and the blood pressure goes up, that she doesn't start to re-bleed. We're not going to leave this on for hours and hours. We're going to rush this patient to definitive care at a trauma center, and we'll get control over that bleeding, get rid of the tourniquet, and then restore perfusion to the hand. But right now, there's no blood flow getting in down here because we have this tightened up. So the rule that we use for taking the tourniquet down is at the definitive care site. Don't take it down beforehand. We use tourniquets every day in operating rooms for orthopedic procedures for hours at a time. On our military experience and now our civilian experience would demonstrate to us that several hours of use of a tourniquet to control hemorrhage does not result in significant complications. And our experience with that is we've now got more than 100 patients treated by Gold Cross and Mayo One with the use of extremity tourniquets. And they carry with them a greater than 95% success rate in stopping bleeding.
There are more YouTube videos than I could say, and probably one of the better things you can actually go to, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's actually from, I think it's either FEMA or it's DHS, but it's called Stop the Bleed. It's a program that was created for government agencies to, train their people on how to use a tourniquet, why to use a tourniquet. I would go to all these different, federal agencies and give them active shooter awareness classes and say, hey, do you have any medical stuff here just in case an active shooter happens? And most people go, no. Okay, do you know how to apply a tourniquet? What's a tourniquet? It's that thing that's going to keep you alive should you, get shot in the arm or leg, which is one of the most common places to get shot besides the torso. So let's just say, for instance, right here, this is my wound, okay? If this is my wound, I want to keep the tourniquet about 2 to 4 inches above the wound. And here's the problem. If you don't have it properly set up, you won't know how to properly put this damn thing on. And that could be really, really difficult as you watch me slowly put this on. And imagine just blood is gushing out of my arm and it's just oozing everywhere. Well, as I'm losing blood, I'm also going to be losing fine motor skills, okay? So you see how I just had to tear this open? That's your fine motor skill. So I need to make sure my tourniquet is on good and tight. Put it through the clasp, close it down, and then using this rod called the windlass rod, you are going to turn and rotate. And actually, screwed up a step. Keep this little part open, that clasp open. You're going to turn and rotate until it freaking hurts. And put it in that clasp. God, I forgot how bad this hurts. And then secure it. Now, I did all that, not hurt, taking my time, trying to explain this. Obviously, a little rusty, haven't done this in a while. But, you know, right now, I can tell you, as much as it pinched my skin right here and it hurt, it's not on tight enough. And I'm not going to do that to myself. But there are many different documentations from Iraq and Afghanistan where your servicemen had their legs amputated, blown off, or arms blown off, or just, shot in the femoral artery, the brachial artery, and they had to apply these tourniquets. And a lot of times when it's self-aid applying a tourniquet, you're going to put it on as tight as you possibly can as you put it on, right? But when your buddy is doing it, man, they're going to crank down to the point that you think your skin is tearing. And there has been a lot of instances where people have taken the tourniquets off because it was more painful than the limb that they just lost. Yeah, that's how tight these are supposed to be. When I was on our little specialized team before I got out of DHS, one of the things that we trained up to was a standard of 17 seconds to put on a tourniquet. And the video, I'll have to find the video one day. That video is because the femoral artery, all right, so that's the artery that runs through the lower abdomen and down your legs. It carries the most blood within your body, at least the blood that's going to probably shoot out the fastest. And the video that we trained up to was a guy somewhere in the Middle East who was shot in the leg. And by the police with an AK-47, so 7.62 round, pow, right in the side of the left thigh, and it just exploded the artery. And they laughed and joked while he bled out, and within 17 seconds, he was dead. Now, when I was in the military, I think we trained up to like a minute to put on a tourniquet, and then it just like kept decreasing, 45 seconds, 30 seconds, 20 something seconds, and then, a couple years ago, 17 seconds. And if you've never put on a tourniquet at 17 seconds with the duty belt on, with the heavy clothing, I mean, and depending on where you stow this thing at, right? It was hard for even the best of us to make that 17-second mark, which says that many of us died in training, right? Because what it would happen is we'd be humping up these freaking mountains, carrying logs and 200-pound dummies and running and all of our gear, packs and helmets and plate carriers and rifles and less than lethal launchers. We're carrying all this stupid stuff, and it's hot. And just, all of a sudden, hey, tourniquet, left leg. And everybody has to just fall down to the ground, rip out your tourniquet, and start trying to put it on. And here you are, falling on the ground. You've ran a couple miles already today, hopping up and down the damn mountains of West Virginia. It's hot as shit outside. And I'm tired. I haven't ate. My hands and legs are cramping because I've been climbing up a 40-foot rope 20 or 30 times just within probably the last 20 minutes ago. And now I'm walking up an incline that's about like this. And tourniquet, left leg. And you already kind of don't care anymore because they do this to you so much during the day that you don't think about it. And you have all this damn gear on, and then you fall to the ground, and now my tourniquet's applied. I don't know if you can see this. Here's my my tourniquet. And you kind of realize that if you don't play the game, you'll never train to the standard that you need to survive. That's the problem with so many people who say that they're ready for doomsday. They're ready for all these bad things to happen. They've never had any training. They never pushed themselves. And they go out to the range, and you know who you are, who I'm talking to. You go out to the range and you shoot what 400 or 500 rounds of ammunition from 10 feet away at a paper target. You got a smile on your face and you think you're ready. You're not. For even some of us who are very, very highly trained, who have had a long time in the game, there are plenty of us who are not ready still. Because you never know when the ambush comes. You never know when the day that you're, running for your life and you fall and break your leg. You never planned for it because you never thought about it. You never thought about it because no one ever told you, hey, you may want to be ready for all these other things except for looking really cool in your tactical gear. And that's why I get a lot of negative comments every now and then, because I poke holes in many of you Karens' soft, mushy egos. So stop kidding yourself. Actually get training. Commit to the physical training. The preparation of physical training and mental toughness, learning the book skills and applying them to your body, applying them to the woods, the woodsman skills, the tactical training, shooting, the running. That's everything that we did in the military. So more or less, what I try to tell people is kind of train your body the way we did in the military, because it worked. It worked. We have no idea. I can tell you right now, there's not a soul alive who knows what it's going to look like when America finally gets invaded. We can give you multiple different alternative options of what could happen within your area. Nobody knows from the first day to the day the nuke finally drops. It may be the nuke first. Nobody's ready for it. When a nuke hits in America, let's say, I'm going to use solely myself, for example. If a nuke hit somewhere in New Mexico, because of the way the winds carry, I know that I probably have a period of hours before I get nuclear fallout. That's if I know a nuke went off over there. If an EMP hit, how do I know the nuke went off? Right? But if, let's say, New Mexico was attacked, I'm not bugging out anywhere. Most likely, I'm not bugging out anywhere. What I'm going to do is start duct taping everything, turn off my air conditioner, get all my animals hunkered down, fill up as much water as I can, as fast as I can, and duct tape everything that is a crease or a seam. All your windows, all your vents, close off all your vents. Everything has to be completely sealed. And that can get maddening when you start talking about how to actually defend your family from nuclear fallout. I'm not gonna say I'm the right guy to ask that question, because I've had that question asked many, many times. Just the old school models are the right way. If you have the ability to go underneath the ground, that's probably the direction you need to go. I mean, and then think about your water filters. How are you going to filter water when you got to go outside? And how long do you give yourself until you do go outside as nuclear fallout is raining down on you? A couple days, probably. A couple days. Have some sort of a radiation detector. That would be nice to have, but most of you don't have it. Most of you don't have it because you don't believe it'll ever happen. And, maybe there's good theory behind it, but all of you have insurance that you pay hundreds of dollars a month for that you typically almost never need. It's, once again, what we're talking about is insurance. You all pay for insurance, for your medical insurance, insurance on your phones. You have insurance on everything. Do you have a radiation detector? It's just insurance. These are the things I want people to start thinking about, because there's no de-escalation going on. We're having way more shootings coming out now. Like I said, here in America, 2023, 139 shootings so far. Mass shootings. That means a mass shooting is where there's been 3 or more people shot at one time. 139. So let's just do some simple math. Let's say 139 with 3 victims. So times 3. So that's 417 people shot. It's probably a lot higher than that. And then you have this guy. Breaking news. Manifesto reveals amphibians persons plans to carry out multiple school shootings. I really thought this was a girl when I was looking at it. Colorado Springs, Colorado. The 18th Judicial District Attorney's Office has charged a former student of District 20, 19-year-old William Whitworth, with attempted murder for allegedly planning attacks on 3 Colorado Springs schools. Whitworth identifies as female and goes by Lily. Crazy people. The arrest affidavit details that the Elbert County Sheriff's Office was alerted to threats made by Whitworth of a school shooting. During initial contact, the suspect appeared to be under the influence and confirmed they had planned the attack. Okay, real quick, under the influence of what? Drugs? Under the influence of alcohol? Under the influence of a social media influencer? What were they under the influence of? I've made the correlations of how many of your active shooters are under more than just the influence of drugs and demons. I think MK Ultra is still around. That's what I really think. I'm going to just say it. This is a paragraph pulled straight out of MK Ultra. One of many paragraphs that I could use to point to the fact that I think MK Ultra is alive and active and being used. And a lot of these killers that we have seen lately appear to be activated by MK Ultra. Now, as you read here, chemical and biological agents were to be studied in order to perfect techniques for the abstraction of information from individuals, whether willing or not, and in order to develop means for the control of the activities of mental capacities of individuals, whether willing or not. Gain control of bodies, whether they were willing or not. A few paragraphs down, we have this. In order to meet the perceived threat to the national security, substantial programs for the testing and use of chemical and biological agents, including projects involving the surreptitious administration of LSD to unwitting non-volunteer subjects at all social levels, high and low, Native Americans and foreigners, were conceived and implemented. These programs resulted in substantial violations of the rights of individuals within the United States. They were willing to do it then. They are willing to do it now. This program never stopped. it only went more underground. It went more into the black budget, and they only got more advanced with their techniques. I believe every killer that we see that has been an active shooter has been manipulated, drugged, guided to commit their acts. I think we as a government have harnessed the ability to take uniquely mentally fragile people and break them down mentally through social media, schools, movies, music, and obviously drugs. And the drugs have just gotten more hardcore as we grow up, right? Drugs are just more hardcore than when I was in school and probably when some of you were in school. These new synthetic drugs, man, they send you into the deep blue yonder really fast. Little case from a friend of mine. His neighbor's kid. She's like 16, and she was smoking a vape pen that had synthetic THC, so synthetic weed in it. And just for one thing, she was groomed by a lesbian, by an amphibian. She was groomed at the local Sonic because she was working there. The groomer was 26. This girl's 16, or I think she was 28. This girl's 16. Easily influenced, right? Easily influenced, talked to all the time. And then started to sell her the narcotics. And now she's in a psychiatric ward. Lost her mind. Whatever it is that this stuff is, man, it's bad. Like, if your kids have a vape pen, take it away from them. These kids are getting access to drugs that the DA, back whenever years ago when I was working in San Antonio, was telling me about some of these vape pens and how they're making like these synthetic narcotics to go into the liquid in the vape pen, and that eventually that will be the drug, the gateway drug for children. And it's come true because I see kids of all ages smoking these vape pens all the time, sitting there in the damn gym. And there'll be, these younger kids smoking these vape pens. Like, I don't mean to sound like I don't mean to sound like, everybody's dad when I say that, but this stuff's not good for you. Don't do it. Right. As much as I say that, people don't listen to me. So anyways, this person was under the influence, okay, not in their coherent mindset, right? Whitworth identified Timberview Middle School, man, middle school. What is that? 14 to like 12-year-olds, and identified the middle school as a main target. Why the middle school? Why not the high school? They're 19. Why not a college, right? Why not a nightclub? Why a middle school? Why so evil that we target young children? Oh, and churches. And churches. Churches, you are more vulnerable than you think you are. Deputies later found evidence at the suspect's home, including journals with lists of firearms and how to make them. I thought that part was strange. How to make them. How do you make a firearm? And if you look at the picture of this person, which I'll make sure I post up, they're not making shit, okay, except for nachos. So this person's not making firearms. But it does say that William had a list of individuals to be killed and information about improvised explosive devices. So right away, where's the ATF at, right? Immediately when you get into improvised explosive devices, the ATF is going to come knocking and questioning you, which is funny because of how many times have we arrested people with improvised explosive devices on them from Antifa and they were released. Explain that one to me, right? All we do is make the initial arrest. So release them, they get back in the crowd, and we kick their ass again and potentially arrest them again, and they get released, and it's just this endless cycle. We don't take anything seriously anymore, I guess. So according to the affidavit, investigators found the manifesto a dry erase board with floor plans and a list of names in a notebook. That's one of the details that really sticks out to me. A dry erase board with floor plans. Floor plans for the middle school, I'm guessing. Woodward said that the manifesto was 4 pages long and had schizophrenic rants on them. However, the affidavit states that when deputies asked if, really going to say deputies, if the amphibian was schizophrenic, he said, "I hope not." So was he like answering in the third person? According to the affidavit, Whitworth was asked how much he knew about school shootings, and he stated too much. When asked what he meant by that, Whitworth stated that there's a page in my manifesto and there's a bunch of mass killers. On the dry erase board, investigators noted it looked like a labeled floor plan of a school with labels identifying the office, bathrooms, classrooms, and the different levels. According to the affidavit, one of the notebooks also had a list of various mass shooters, serial killers, politicians, and entertainers with commentary on each. Woodworth faces charges of criminal attempt to commit murder in the first degree, interference with staff or students, menacing, and criminal mischief, and is being held in the Elbert County Jail. Whitworth's preliminary hearing is scheduled for May 5th, 2023, and bond is set at $75,000. No firearms or explosives were found on the suspect or in the home during the arrest. So that's probably a good thing that no firearms were found and no explosives were found, but the intent was there. And the thing that this person says that I want you to pay attention to is that copycat killer mentality. When they say, how much do you know about serial killers? They go, oh, a lot, quite a bit. Well, why do you know it? Do you know it because you're looking into it? You're trying to see what they did that worked? Because right here below is the name where the list of people are. It says Eric and Dylan, losers. Who was Eric and Dylan? Adam Lanza, too smart. Israel Keys, degenerate. Lauren Southern, pathetic. Vaush, terrorist. Donald J. Trump, con man. Bad cops, useless garbage. Stockholm, name. Liam K. I don't understand everything they say, but they're referencing active shooters and politicians. They're referencing actors. There are so many people in this country who are mentally ill. I think maybe it's the proper time to reopen up the psychiatric wards. I really do mean that. And I know like the barbarity that's happened in the psychiatric wards. I don't think we should be in there with ice picks, and neutralizing people. But It's coming to the point in time where like it's getting weird out there. It's getting really weird. Luckily, this guy, this amphibian, did not go out and commit mass shooting. And just look at him. You know, I mean, this is a lost young man who needs mental health and needs Jesus. But I have to ask, what were the parents doing to allow that to happen? Where were the parents? And I hate to say it, but what are the political motivations of the parents? Are they what influenced the child? Was it the friends that influenced the child? Was it the public media, you know, the mainstream media? Was it the politicians like AOC and all these other stupid people from The View that influenced this person? Because they all influence a great number of people who are mentally deranged, who have no real guidance. They have no real direction to take their life. And so they join these little groups of friends and they all talk amongst each other and they bitch to each other about who they don't like and how much they don't like people. And I ain't got no friends and my family hates me and I don't know if I'm a boy or I'm a girl and I'm just going to go kill everybody. That's what we're devolving in America. And it's not stopping. And you need to recognize the threat that is here. And the real threat is not, it's not amphibians. The real threat comes from people who influence each other. The real threat is coming from people who allow crime to persist. The real threat is coming from the church, who is not going out and combating the reprobate mindset and nature of many people in America. The hands and feet of the church have been missing in action for too long. So, this stuff's not going to slow down. More of this is going to happen. They literally made an idol already out of the Nashville shooter. These people are absolutely insane. Like I said, these people are all Antifa. They're all the same people. They're all the same group of degenerates. And right now, I'm not worried about saving their souls when I'm worried about kids being shot in schools. And neither should you. You know, when you get the chance, preach the word of God to somebody. But you better be walking around with a gun in your hip from now on. Because, man, I mean, you just never know. You go in to get the groceries, the active shooter happens out in the parking lot, or that's when the active, gang violence happens, or the abductions happen, the kidnaps happen, especially for women with children. You have no idea how common it is for a mom to be pushing a shopping cart, okay, and then to turn around and go grab some milk or something, and here comes some random ass dude or lady, picks up your infant and walks away, and then nobody sees anything, nobody says anything. Situational awareness, 360 degrees of rotational situational awareness whenever you go anywhere, to include when you come home. When you come home, stop your car, look left, look right, look to see if anything is out of place. And when you get out of your vehicle is when you are going to be most vulnerable. When you're getting your kids out is when you're going to be most vulnerable. So, very easy thing to do. Have a gun on you and your head on a swivel and be ready to use it should you need it. That's the America that you live in right now. So, that's all I really got for you right now, guys. Like I said, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the American Vindicta Show. If you want to donate and help this show stay on, then we have a Give, Send, Go page. Just go to Give, Send, Go, American Vindicta Show. There's also a address for a P.O. box for people who like to send me cards and letters. If you want to send me cards and letters and emails and all that, hey man, that's great. I love it. I love talking to people. I talk to people all the time. I got people asking me all the time different types of advice that I can be helping them out with. Because once again, that's what we should be doing, is trying to help each other. That's all I'm trying to do. If I wanted to make money, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. So that's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. Be blessed. May our Lord be with you on this day. And man, stay frosty. The enemy's out there.
Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum has said, "You will own nothing and you will love it." And that's represented by what's going on across the planet today, where the economy of the world is in free fall, and nowhere is it more in evidence than with our own President Biden deliberately trying to sabotage what we have. Access to food, other resources. So Americans are in a unique position, really for the first time in our history. We're going to have to provide for ourselves or subject ourselves to the whim of the government. Do you really trust a government to feed you that left 1,000 Americans behind enemy lines in Afghanistan? I don't think so. So where do you go? When you ask the question, who's the best prepper out there today? There's only one answer. Ready-Made Resources and Robert Griswold. I call him King Prepper, and that's how a lot of people think of him. You have everything there you'd want, from night vision to storable food, how to prepare cooking in emergency situations, books and videos on how to prepare alternative energy, communication, first aid that you wouldn't think of, natural antibiotics, you name it. Bob has it. Now, here's the good thing about Bob Griswold that no one else does but him. You don't have to buy anything to talk to him. If you're not sure where to start with your preparation, no obligation phone call directly to Bob. You can talk to him for free. Most people will charge you an arm and a leg for a half-hour conversation. That's not Bob Griswold. He cares about helping America get prepared. Go to readymaderesources.com, or you can call the number directly at 800-627-3809. Again, that contact information, readymaderesources.com, for the best prepping outfit in the country, or call Bob Griswold directly, 800-627-3809.
Mountain State Survival covers your basis for your planning, prepping, evacuation, bugging in, or bugging out needs. They carry anything from educational material, camping supplies, emergency services supplies, food, first aid, survival kit and equipment, shooting gear, survival gear, tactical gear. They carry it all. They got it in stock. Give Mountain State Survival a ring. That's mountain-state-survival.com. Get this type of supplies while you still can. 304-517-6935. 35. Mountain State Survival is one of the only places that I know of currently that is still carrying the delicious Peak Refuel meal that is ready to eat. It's personally the only thing that I eat at this point whenever I go out camping, whenever we have any type of emergency or disaster situation. That is the meal that I stick with, and you can find that at mountain-state-survival.com. Use REKKR5 for a 5% discount on your overall purchase. That's REKKR 5, mountainstatesurvival.com. This show on the Heroes Nation app. Heroes Nation is the Heroes Nation app you can download in the App Store. It's up and coming. They got a lot of cool information on there. That is the main backup site so far for the American Vindicta show. We'll also have some stuff on there that won't be on YouTube. It won't be on Rumble. It'll either be only on the gsradio.net, who is the host of the American Vindicta show, or it will only be an exclusive for Heroes Nation. And with that, I mean, stuff that we're doing with the cave exploration, with the archaeological stuff. I'm going to start getting into a lot of paranormal talks and, coming at that from my law enforcement and Christian perspective, and be having guests on, and that will be exclusive to Heroes Nation. So make sure that you give them some love. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everybody, for supporting me. God bless you, and have a good day.